As the generations go by, Yom HaShoah risks going the way of other days of mourning, which just a couple centuries ago seemed very significant, but by now have faded away. There are fundamental questions that the younger generation might ask. Why is it important to remember the Holocaust? Why is it important to study the Holocaust? The answers may seem obvious to us, but less obvious to those coming behind us. And for them, we need to formulate a better answer.
With the Holocaust, we lost much of our culture, we lost much of our history. We got disconnected from what it means to be a Jew. When we think back to Europe, we think about the houses of Volozhin, of Rizhin, of these tremendous yeshivas and these Jewish centers that right now we're so far from. And what we need to do is we need to sort of rebuild that culture which we lost and create our own new culture while learning from the culture of the past.
Whenever I hear incredible stories of people and how they continue their relationships with Torah throughout the Shoah, I realize how lucky I am that I was born a Jew and that I share in this tradition that's able to give strength to people even in the hardest and most hopeless of times.
I served in the IDF, and over the course of 8 months of training, you do a number of things that are very physically difficult. And there were times when the physical aspects seemed too much or I wanted to quit. And at those times, I would think back to my grandmother in particular, who was in Auschwitz and survived, and all the stories that she has told me over the years. And at the end of my training, when I received my beret, she was there. She was sitting in a wheelchair next to my family. And when I received my beret, seeing her there was one of the happiest and joyful moments of my life, being able to see her and everything she's been through and seeing where I was and everything I had been through.
I struggle to connect with the Holocaust. My grandparents and great-grandparents were already in America by the mid-1800s. No one in my immediate family had to suffer the horrors, trials, and tribulations of the Shoah. It's an idea. It's something I'm aware of in my national Jewish identity, but it's not personal in the same way that my friends talk about their grandparents or their great-grandparents. How am I supposed to connect?
The reason that my great-grandmother survived the Holocaust was because before the war even began, at the young age of 17, she had left her family to go and live the Zionist dream and to help build the soon-to-be state of Israel. Because of that, when I think about Holocaust education, I can't help but connect it with Israel education and with the importance of teaching future generations to support Israel and to appreciate the fact that it exists.
When my family moved into our new community, an elderly man came up to us and told us, "Your grandfather saved my life in the Holocaust." I never knew my grandfather well, but I was always told of the strong, loving person he was. I lived my life to try to make my mark on others, like the way he saved that man.
I remember staring into the cold cement gas chamber in Majdanek. I saw a light blue stain on the wall left from Zyklon B, the gas used to suffocate millions of Jews throughout the Holocaust. The color had an eerie resemblance to tcheles, the blue dye used to color the strings of our tzitzis, whose purpose is to remind us of the heavens where God, as it were, resides. I felt like God was telling the Jews of the Holocaust in future generations to remember him, even in moments seemingly bereft of his presence.
We see horrors which remind us of the Holocaust reproduced in different parts of the world. And at the same time, Holocaust denial and Holocaust distortion are increasing. If we are to be truly committed to never again, we must properly educate future generations about the horrors of the Holocaust. The Holocaust could happen again, and all of us need to do our utmost to prevent it.
Coming from a Sephardi lineage of Jews from Iran, people often ask me why I decided to get so involved in making this Holocaust documentary. And one of the reasons why I really like to get involved is because I felt that it was a part of my history that I wasn't as connected to as I wanted to be.
As an intern in the education department of the Museum of Jewish Heritage, I'm involved in Holocaust education constantly. When I see the lack of knowledge that so many students come in with, it can be sometimes frustrating. But when I see the insights and applications that they've made after they've gone, I'm glad that against all of these odds, the Holocaust's memory is perpetuated so that we can ensure for the next generations that it cannot happen again.
One of the most frequently asked questions I get is why I'm choosing to go into medicine. For me, it's not medical. It singularly is my grandparents. They have gone through an experience that desecrated their values, their beliefs, tried to take away their will to live, remove them from everything they loved, and eradicated and diminished the value of life. I know it may be something incredibly small, but I know if I can focus my life and dedicate it to preserving life, maybe I can walk in their paths and exemplify these messages and morals they lived each and every day.
As Jews, our identity has been shaped by our responses to historical events. The Holocaust was the greatest tragedy in our history, and we all have to figure out, for ourselves, how to respond to it.